Hello and welcome, everybody. This is your host, Ken D. Foster. You can actually see me now. I'd like to welcome everybody on Facebook. We have an amazing show lined up today. The show is called The Courage to Adapt and Change. I've got some pretty amazing guests today, and I hope you'll tune into it because I think it's a show that will really help you take your life to a new level. And Catherine, welcome. I'm so glad to see you.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, how are you this morning?
We're doing great, thanks.
That's awesome. Well, Catherine's an author, a leadership consultant. She spent more than 3 decades in the CIA, including 12 years living abroad. Her work in communities all over the world and the engendering unconditional love of her 4-legged muse, Grace, inspired her to write Everybody Loves Grace, a series of illustrated books that parents and kids of all ages and executives and organizational leaders hail the series as a beacon of hope and inspiration for anyone navigating change or challenging circumstances. Isn't that all of us? I think so. Well, listen. So let's talk about this book first of all. Why did you write it? Why did you do this, Katy?
You know, Ken, I had never aspired to be a children's author or really an author, but I have this amazing dog. Her name is Grace, and just in our day-to-day lives, every day we go out for a walk, somebody stops us, and she makes a difference in somebody's life. And I came home one day from a pretty important walk, and I just got this message that this book you're supposed to write, Katy, it's not about you. It has everything to do with Grace. And so I just listened to that message and wrote the book.
That's so cool. That's so cool. You know, I was thinking this morning, and I was meditating, I think I was. And what came to me was how much I love our little dog, Daisy. And Daisy is she's here with me in studio somewhere. Anyway, she's a little multi-poo. And, but, you know, Daisy actually, I think, healed me. Daisy taught me how to love dogs. And because, you know, I'm not going to get into this too much in depth, but when I was 5 years old, my favorite dog got taken away from me. From that point on, I never liked dogs, right? I didn't relate that till about 45 years later when I put it all together. And I went, that's why I don't love dogs. And then Daisy came in my life and healed the rest of it. So, okay, so Daisy and I get very present with each other. We're just completely there. One of the things that you say the most important gifts we can give each other is the gift of presence. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when one of the things Grace models, because she doesn't speak, obviously, right? But she is just present. And, you know, we live in downtown Denver, and she'll go to the dirtiest, smelliest person on the street, or she'll go to somebody sitting at a bus stop. And she just sits right in front of them, looks straight in their heart, right in their eyes and down into their hearts. And I really believe what she's done is create a safe space for that person. She's connecting at a level that most of us don't take time for. And so she creates a safe space and a feeling of connection.
Wow. Well, do I love this conversation or what? So, you know, other lessons that Grace can teach us. Let's talk about like small acts of kindness. How do you see that with Grace?
How I see that with Grace, again, it's every single day. You know, there was days when I used to work at the CIA and I'd be rushing to a meeting, right? Or I'd want to rush home from our walk. And she'd say, no, Mom, we need like 5 more minutes with this person. And just that gift of another minute or 2 or 5 minutes, we'll walk away from that person and they'll say, you just made my day. No, I think you made my week. And these simple acts of kindness, like spending an extra minute with somebody, or stopping to we have an alternative high school that's on our block. And pretty much every day, these kids from the high school will stop and pet Grace. You know, they don't live at home. They live in group homes. They're in special schools. Their parents are in prisons. And Grace makes a difference every single day in these kids' lives. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that alone is really cool. Because what it's triggering or even healing in me right now is when I coach clients for the last 24 years, and I'm always telling them, slow down to succeed, slow down to succeed. But I don't necessarily do that when I'm walking Daisy. I'm like going, I'm running. And sometimes she just wants to stop and hang and be present and connect with another dog or another person, or I'm going to do better with that. I like where we're going with this. This is really good. Okay.
I think Daisy's giving you a message there, Ken.
I think so. I'm getting it. I'm getting it. I'm a slow learner, but I get it now and then. Okay, so CIA. Let's talk about the world of CIA and how did that contribute to writing the book? That's Everybody Loves Grace.
Yeah, I spent 32 years with the CIA. I was in logistics, so I helped do kind of the support operations for the spies. But I lived in some pretty austere conditions. I lived in third world countries for about 12 years of my career, and I saw the poorest of the poor, and I worked with families that had less than, and I saw these children. And I think I've always had a heart for kids. I've worked with orphanages overseas. And when I came back to the States and when I retired and had the time to let my brain really rest, I realized that kids need this message of hope and courage. Like, we have it really good in the United States, but there's difficult situations that come up in life. And I learned that overseas when you see rice drying in the streets of Manila and you don't quite understand why that is, or kids that are just standing there with no shoes on and it's 5 degrees below zero. I've always had this heart for kids, and I think, Grace came from a difficult situation. And so when she came to Denver to live with me, this story of hope and courage, she just made the best of the situation, and I felt like there was a good translation there from what I'd experienced in CIA and seen around the world, and then an opportunity to bring it. Who doesn't want to hear from a dog, right? A fluffy dog at that.
A fluffy dog. Okay, I wish Grace were here with us. I remember I had this show. We had Puda the cat, and Puda the cat was so cool. It sounds like Grace is really cool too. So listen, I got to take a break. We'll be right back, and when we get back, I want to talk about a little more about your experience with Grace and how that has transitioned yourself and how it can transition others by what you've learned. We'll be right back. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody back to Voices of Courage. Today our show is called The Courage to Adapt and Evolve. And it's been a very interesting show because we've had some scientists on, and they're talking about animal behavior. And now we're talking to Katy McQuaid, and she has written a book called Everybody Loves Grace. It's for parents and kids of all ages, which I'm one of them. And I'm just really happy to have you on the show. But before we get to that, I just want to say one thing. I want to give a shout out to what we're doing in launching my latest book, The Courage to Change Everything. You can find it on Amazon at couragetochange.us. Again, couragetochange.us. And for those of you that are authors or soon-to-be authors or best-selling, want to be a best-selling author, you're invited to join myself and several of my New York Times best-selling author friends and business strategists. We're teaching you our strategies. We're teaching you exactly how we write, market, and distribute books in the world. And the reason I'm doing this because I believe that we have to lift the world up from the bottom up. We need to get our messages of hope and truth and understanding and courage in the world. If you're one of those authors, come in at no cost to you. To learn from the best of the best in the world. You can learn it, you can find it at couragetochange.us/invite, couragetochange.us/invite. Okay, Katy McQuaid, let's talk, girl. Let's talk about Grace. Tell me more about Grace. I want to know about Grace.
Well, Grace came to me when she was 4 years old. She lived on a farm up in Canada, and it was a pretty abusive home where she came from, and the owner thankfully decided to rehome her. So she came on a plane all by herself, and I will tell you, children always question that. Did she really come by herself? Yep, she did.
Wow.
And what I love to talk about, because we're talking about adapting and evolving, she didn't know what she was coming to. She left a farm and came to the city of Denver, and she arrived there, and she had a big brother. I had an older dog named Tinto at the time, and so she came at she was 4 years old. And when she got there, it was like she and Tinto had been together their whole life. They just immediately bonded. And one of the things that I love to talk about, we've talked about simple acts of kindness, but another thing that Grace has really taught me is that the journey is a really important part of any adventure. And that journey could be walking to Denver Health, or to going to the Grand Canyon, or wherever we travel to, but she always finds something important along the way to point out to me.
That's very interesting. She always finds something very important for you to notice along the way. And how many of us do not give credence to our animals, or even maybe to other children, or others in our environment? We're so busy rushing through life that we don't tend to stop and just notice, like in your case, what Grace is telling you. I think that's an important message.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you say every day is an adventure. How can that perspective help people who are going through change or experiencing hardship?
A really important thing about going through change and looking at it as an adventure is, what can I learn from the situation? It may seem difficult or unknown. There may be uncertainty, but there may be somebody along the way that you're meeting in that particular moment, or it's an experience that's going to really help you in life. So every day is an adventure is really about approaching things with curiosity, also with a positive attitude, knowing that something good could come of change, and just that our positive experiences can result from uncertainty or difficult times.
So uncertainty is an interesting concept, because most of us that are successful in life have been able to master going into uncertain areas. And in other words, when you start a business or you start a relationship, you just don't know how that's going to go. It's just as an uncertainty when you got Grace flying in, picking her up at the airport. There's uncertainty. You don't really know if this dog is going to be able to be trained or loved in a way that she'll love back. You just don't know. But uncertainty.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that. So how can people best face uncertainty?
With strength, I think about when I got on the plane to go to my first overseas assignment, and I left the comfort of all my college friends, my family, and I got on a plane not knowing anybody, really. I was going to land in a destination where I didn't know a soul. And it was clear I wasn't going to know all the pieces, but I had this faith, and I had an understanding that I was going to be able, I had the courage to get through whatever was going to be presented to me. And also I looked at it as an opportunity to learn new things, new cultures, new foods, new temperatures, 98 degrees, 365 days a year. So I think one of the tools is just to have a confidence in oneself and the courage to know that we can control, we have the ability to affect the outcome just by our attitude alone and just how we approach things.
So in your experience with Grace, what are the lessons of courage and trust that kind of Grace has taught you? Let me put it back that way.
Okay, so there are times when she'll go up to somebody that I'm actually a little bit nervous about them, right? Because of the way they look or the way they're dressed. And she'll encourage me to go to them, and I always follow her lead, because I've learned to trust her. And invariably, that person will say something to me that is imparting wisdom, or just the ability to make them happier in a brief encounter, right? So I've learned to trust Grace. If she says, "Mom, we're not going down this street," I don't go down that street. I don't really force her to go anywhere because I trust her.
Wow, that's really that's good.
One of the things, Ken, that you talk a lot about is what can't be seen, or knowing what can't be seen. And I actually, that's kind of a mantra that I've embodied. Like I trust knowing of what I can't see, but I know it's there. And I've actually learned that Grace has a great power in that than even I do. So I listen to that.
Isn't that interesting? Like Daisy, my multi-poo, she will be sitting in my room with the curtains closed. She can't see outside, and she will start to bark. And I've done this many times. I'll go out and I'll look, and there's another dog walking down the street.
Yeah.
They have extra ESP, extrasensory perception, in ways that we really don't. You're absolutely right about it. So they hear things, they're auditory, or they smell, or they have a way of experiencing something that's not even in their space. And we all do too. We just have it undeveloped. And so I really like, because what that's called in my world, it's called intuition. And, some people would call it a gut feeling, but intuition or gut feelings, we all have it, but most of it's undeveloped. Like Grace sounds like hers is completely developed. Yep, I'm not going that way. I don't trust this one. I feel this one. Yeah. So I think we can learn from Grace that way. What do you think?
Absolutely. Can I tell you a quick story about Grace's intuition?
You can.
One day we went out for a walk, and she went a completely different direction than we would normally go. And I was like, oh, this is strange. But I turned to my right, and down the street were all these police cars. They were for blocks. There were police cars, and they had somebody had escaped the Denver Health, one of the prisoners had escaped his medical exam. But Grace knew, I'm not going west, I'm going east. And I just thought, isn't that incredible? She knew to go the complete opposite direction.
Well, I have a story around that. I probably told it too much to my listeners, but when I was first developing my intuition, my wife and I first got together, she'd always tell me, go left, and I'd say, no, we need to go right. And we did this maybe 20 times, and every time she's right? I mean, if I go right, I'm driving, she says, go left, I go right. We hit traffic, we hit all kinds of construction. It just on and on it went. I was like, oh, this is weird. So I finally said, okay, I'm going to surrender to this. I'm going to pay attention and really learn from my wife, Judy, how to tune in and to be more intuitive. And over the years, I've learned that. But what a gift it is when we start to become present. We start to focus and learn and not discount anything that's going on in our environment. It's all there to bring us to more awareness, to help us understand who we are and what's possible if we pay attention. Well, listen, I'm just about out of time, but I got one more important question. And that is, what about leaders and executives? Because I work with a lot of them on our show. How can these lessons in the book, how can they apply to them? How can they make a difference for them?
Well, I think how they can make a difference is, simple acts of kindness, even as leaders, being kind. And that could be writing a thank you note, or taking time to stop by somebody's office on your way to grab a cup of coffee. I think that ability to slow down and just take that extra moment and be present as a leader is a really important lesson. That it can make a huge difference in an organization. Just the ability to hold space for people, not always necessarily solve the problem, but just hold space and create a safe environment and connection with your staff and employees.
That's wonderful. Okay, so let's tell them where they can get the book. It's everybodylovesgrace.com. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
There's actually 3 books. There's the first one, and the second one is her adventure to the Grand Canyon, and the third one's an adventure to Texas. And they're available on everybodylovesgrace.com and also on Amazon.
I love that. I love that. Okay. So, wow. Katy McCabe, thank you so much for being here. I love this. This has
Thank
been
you,
really
Ken.
good. And I wish you so much success in the book. I believe that this is a book that can really help people. You've already taught me. I've learned today. So I'm going to be a lot more present with Daisy. I'm going to pay more attention to her intuition. And I bet you things open up in greater ways for myself. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing it with us. Any final thoughts?
Just want to say thank you for having me. And Grace would be here, but I'm not at home today. So she would be right next to me as well.
That's so good. All righty. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. But, for all of you that have tuned into our show, I hope you will continue to let others know about the show. And remember, with courage, you can see things that you've never seen before. You could do things with you've never done before. And I hope you have a really blessed week. All righty. Take care.